Hey, good morning, Lou.
Good morning. How are we doing today?
We're doing well. We're doing well. The ubiquitous, just because I wanted to say that today, the
Ubiquitous?
ubiquitous we. Who's we? Me, myself, and I. Yeah, we're doing well over here.
Yeah. Back when I was doing a lot of radio, a friend of mine used to like to text me to try to work words into the show, but it had to be done in a natural way. And by the way, one of those shows was one of the times the word was sassafras. And I got it in and I got 2 hours of show out of it. People started calling in about sassafras.
That is too funny.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Sassafras. Well, so why don't you tell everybody what sassafras is while we're talking about dating and marriage? I mean, sassafras just moves right in there.
Sassafras was the beginning of root beer, if I remember all this correctly. It was what root beer was before root beer, but sassafras turned out to be poisonous, so they had to
Oh,
discontinue using that.
whoa.
Yeah, well, I mean, not super poisonous, but still, it wasn't good for you. Sort of like when Coca-Cola was still using cocaine, they had to decide not to do that.
Ah, those were the good old days.
They made,
Actually getting your Coke worth with a
well, they made,
soda.
yeah, they made sarsaparilla out of sassafras.
Yep, I've heard of that.
And that was a precursor to root beer. But
Mhm.
sassafras and sarsaparilla weren't particularly good for you, apparently. If I remember all this correctly, it's going back a few years.
Yep. Well, I think that's a good segue to today's show because when I hear the word sassafras, I think of the word sassy,
Mm.
which is my nickname from my husband, TMI. Who wants to hear that? But at least it wasn't something like frisky or something like that. It's just sassy because, I've got that sort of edginess to me.
Yep.
Although he nicknamed me Sassy when we were first dating, so it was kind of endearing at the time. Now I think he finds it to be my most annoying trait.
Yeah.
Um,
He's releasing a little aggression there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was funny because he found a painted stone at a store once, which he paid like $10 for. So of course that's all I could think about. I'm like $10 for a stone, and it was engraved Sassy.
Yeah.
So Sassy is a stone in my hallway coming into our house, which is kind of funny. Like,
Yeah.
we're the only ones that see it. We're the only ones that laugh about it. But
Yeah. Inside joke. That's what couples need. They need inside jokes.
right. That's
Yep.
what I'm going to say. So couples need inside jokes. Couples need nicknames because nicknames are, as I said, a term for endearment.
Yep.
When I talk to my couples who are married or dating and they're having some issues, right? I often am looking for things like that.
Yep.
So when I ask them, talk to me about the good times before you came to my office when things were better. The good old days,
Yep.
Let's talk about last year.
Yeah. Really.
And when they talk about the past, I'm listening for things like that. I'm listening for when they're telling me what was good, and you're going to love this, Lou, because we talk about this. Where do they talk about, Betsy really understood that I get a lot of stress in my day-to-day work life, and Betsy used to buy me every few months randomly a gift certificate for a massage.
Mm-hmm.
Or Betsy knows how much I love chocolate, and it's not something you always have around the house, but Betsy, like, I'll say, well, what were some of your favorite times? Well, maybe like the time that Betsy threw me a surprise birthday party. And I'd be like, yeah, that's like a nightmare for me. Like one of my ex-husbands did that. And I was like, I know you think this was fun. It was not fun for me.
Right. Yeah.
Wasn't fun. Too many people. I didn't really get to talk to everybody like I like. I'd rather have 5 people,
Right. Yep.
Plus the surprise factor almost gave me a heart attack, but that's another topic. I was like, I don't like to be frightened.
It doesn't land the same for everybody.
Doesn't land the same for everybody. But what I would have said about him, if it were me having problems, I would have said in the past, some of the things that I liked with him were we both loved to travel, and we did like we liked and enjoyed the same places. So whether we were in the desert, somewhere outside of Scottsdale,
Yep.
Arizona, or we were in Florida, or Cancun, wherever we were, it wasn't that we always went to the same kind of environment, but we always enjoyed those environments. And we enjoyed the adventure of getting to know a new place.
Yep.
Right. But nicknames, he had, a fun nickname for me, which actually he stole from my family. So it was slightly not creative, but he really liked it. And so he would call me that, my childhood nickname.
Yeah.
And
he had his own spin on it, I imagine. It was a little different than, so he kind of adopted on it for his own. It's like doing when a band does a cover of a song, just make it your own, right?
Right. Make it your own.
Yeah.
But, nicknames mean something. And the other thing is, when you think about it, when my husband started calling me Sassy early on, that was basically saying to him, like, I think it really was more, I was always game for, I was game for anything. I was up for anything.
Yep.
And if he said Thai, I'm like, sounds good to me. I love Thai food. If he said, why don't we go into Boston and find a really great Italian restaurant? They'd be like, sounds good to me. So you can see the theme here.
Yep.
Pretty much, if someone's offering to take me out to eat,
yep,
as long as it's not a bologna sandwich, although I would say a bologna sandwich probably would be appropriate somewhere along the line. It's all about having the experience.
Yep.
And
I think we just touched on two things that are very important in a relationship, and why the honeymoon phase is the honeymoon phase, because these things are in full force at that point, and then they can be eroded away. One of which is acceptance. In other words, calls you sassy because he took your personality a little bit that might rile some other people, and says, I like it. I embrace it, and you're safe with me. It's that safety. It's like, even if you're sassy a little sometimes, I still love you. Right.
Right.
And the other thing is understanding. You like to feel understood. You like to feel that your partner gets you. And if they know on a particular day that they should get you some chocolates, or, bring you home, Frosty from Wendy's or something.
Yep.
If they understand that and they know that, that means they see you, they get you, and they accept you, and you're safe. Those are very important aspects in a relationship, and they tend to wear away after a while if you don't take care of them. And that's when relationships start to strain, when you don't feel your partner understands you and accepts you.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's true. And, we're going to talk a combination today about dating, and also we're going to talk about the holidays. And so when I was out doing errands yesterday with my mom, I got a text from my husband saying, hey, I think we should get the tree down, because we bought into the fake tree a couple of years ago. And boy, am I happy. Especially given the price of trees this year. I mean, I have a friend that just bought a 5-foot tree for $90.
Oh yeah, it's been ridiculous for years. That is more ridiculous, but it's been ridiculous for years.
That's even more ridiculous. But
yeah, the cost to put a fire hazard in your house, it's great.
Right. But the funny thing is, Lou, so yeah, exactly. I'm not,
yeah.
That is often how winter fires start in houses. So yeah. So it was funny because after he sent me the text message, I looked at my mom and I'm like, uh-oh. She's like, what's the matter? I'm like, looks like Jim is going to be decorating the house without me. And she's like, why do you say that? I said, because I know once he gets this thought, right, he really wants the stuff down from the attic. And sure enough, I came home. The tree was already up. He already started to decorate it.
Oh, God, yeah.
And he had every single box of, like decorations out. And that's just his thing. Like, he just loves, it's actually later than he would have liked. But like, who am I to like rain on his parade and say, I don't want this until next weekend? Or I did, because I didn't want every box down, and I'm not putting everything up, but he kind of fought me on that. So I think in his mind, we own it, put it out. And in my mind, I'm like, just because we own it doesn't mean it has to come out. Like, I don't want like Santas on every single step going up to the top floor of the condo. Like, I swear to God, we have so many stuffed Santas and snowmen. We could decorate every single flight of stairs, and we have like 5 flights of stairs. I mean, this is a big condo. And I'm like, that's a lot of stairways, Jim. He's like, well, like they're there, right? But that's his thing, and I could have fought it, and I could have been a jerk about it, but like, why would I do that?
Yeah. Sounds like my house in reverse. It's kind of the same thing. And the thing was with it, I just said, listen, you have till January 2nd. You know, do whatever you want to do. It's fine, but it all goes back January 2nd. That's my only condition. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I got 2 Christmas trees side by side. So I don't know what's going on.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
How's that possible?
I don't know. They just, all of a sudden there was a second one. I don't know.
You're not making that up?
No, I'm not making that up. No.
Well,
Well, I had a tree before they moved in, and they brought in a tree, and they had the 2 trees, so naturally they went up. So I don't know.
wow.
I don't
Well,
know.
you know what? Maybe you can move one of them into the kitchen next to the dog bowl. And so
Well-
the dog gets their own, the dog can have his own tree.
That was my thought, but apparently I'm not understanding the whole concept of having the 2 basically side by side. But it's all right. See, that's the thing. I just relinquished it. It's like, okay, whatever
Right.
you want until January 2nd.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things that I've been working with some of my clients is, so with my single clients, right? This is kind of a hard time of the year because some of my single clients don't really want to be single right now.
Yeah.
And they would trade some of the compromising differences and difficulties that we talk about to be able to have companionship.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the things I wanted to talk about today was, how do we survive these holidays? We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now. Surviving the holidays, whether you're in a good marriage, a bad marriage, you're single, wherever you're at, there are triggers for everybody. And even people who are happily married or happily dating, there's parts about Christmas that they're not going to like, or that they struggle with, or that trigger like a sad memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone has to acknowledge it. And that's why they now have songs, and they even have support groups called Blue Christmas.
Yep.
And in fact, I signed up for some devotionals that come every day on the topic of Blue Christmas, only because it helps me to learn more and more about people that are experiencing that. And sometimes if the devotional that I get on a particular day resonates with something I know would resonate with a client, I can forward it on. But it's just, even Elvis sang about it.
Right.
And sometimes people are sad because they're single and they haven't had somebody for several years. Other times they're sad because they just broke up and now they don't have somebody during the holidays. Or they've been trying to get a date for the last 6 to 9 months, and it hasn't worked. And now they're at the holidays and they don't have somebody to, share gifts with.
Right.
And you and I have both been single, and now we're not.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember those, like when you go out to restaurants at this time of the year, it's almost always 2 people, whether they're friends or dating, out to dinner or having drinks at the bar.
Right.
And you're the single guy, or I'm the single woman, going in, because I love the bartender and I like the burgers there, whatever. And, you look around, especially this time of year, Lou,
right.
There's a lot of couples out there.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you must see it in the restaurants near you because you live in a really cool place.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's obviously you're a little bit more tender about it at this point in time, but that's just a bad position to be in. It's like, they caution you not to like buy a puppy for Christmas because a puppy is forever, that type of thing. Or don't buy bunnies at Easter, that type of thing. Should be the same thing with a relationship. You don't get into a relationship just because you don't want to be alone for Valentine's Day or for a wedding or for Christmas. It's a bad basis on which to be making that decision. So you have to avoid that because those feelings are really strong right now just to get coupled up for the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, looking back, like post breakup that you had in the past.
Yeah.
What would you do to sort of get over like the possibility of kind of like the holiday blues?
Well, this was, most recent breakup in my time single when I was younger was a different deal.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time I was single after the marriage, it was about, like it always was at that point, it was about the kids. Just celebrate Christmas with the kids and focus on them and try to make it as good for them as possible. Take some solace in them. I know that's not always the most advisable way to go about it, but it was, being with them was like therapy for me. It allowed me to set down these worries for a while. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And, I remember for me, so looking back into earlier in life, like in my 20s, um, in high school, I didn't really care, right?
Right.
I just didn't. In fact, I didn't really expect anything. And at that age, I didn't expect much. I mean, it's different nowadays. People expect more. Um, my nose itches, but I didn't expect a lot. And what I found was after college, when I started to get a little more worldly, when you're hitting your stride at 21,
Yep. Yeah.
I started to feel like dating and the holidays was a double-edged sword.
Yep.
And I remember feeling like, you know, I enjoy being with somebody else's family, but then that means time I'm taking away from my family,
Right.
right? And I'm not married to them, but at the same time, there's this feeling of, well, you guys are a couple, so even though you're not married, you kind of expected to do some of that.
Yeah, you had to go into his circles. You had to go into his
Right,
friends. You had to go into his family, and you haven't had enough time to establish that type of relationship where it's a comfortable place for you.
right, right. And I
And
remember
you remember,
thinking,
you remember what Robin Williams said?
no,
He,
what?
he said the worst kind of loneliness is when you're with people and alone. And so when you have that kind of feeling of being alone by yourself, that's one thing. But if you're in a new relationship and you're going to that family and you're going to
Mhm.
that group of friends and you're out there, you're with a bunch of people, but you don't really have a connection with anybody yet.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So one of the things that we've talked about with the holidays in the last couple of weeks is having a plan and putting together a plan for you that works for you. And so it's a great lesson of endurance that really requires a little bit of self-esteem, right? And it requires a little bit of me time,
Yep.
and it might require a little bit of finesse in how you say it. But the reality is most of us don't really, unless we don't like, unless our family doesn't do much. If we enjoy being with our friends and family, and going with the other person's friends and family feels like a huge sacrifice, I think it's important to put into perspective how long you've been dating the person. I
Mhm.
know that sounds like an obvious thing, but I think we should talk about that
Right.
because you and I often talk about people who are married do have to make some compromises.
Sure.
And for some couples, if somebody's family's out in Chicago, it could be that, okay, every few years, I'll go with you to see your family in Chicago, but otherwise, you know, you can go by yourself,
Right.
and I'll go with my family. But when you're still single, it's a different kind of walk. And you have to determine how serious is the relationship, because the seriousness of the relationship, as well as the length of the relationship, determines how much time you should really be allocating toward each other's families and friends, right?
Yep.
And I'm talking about people who are single and dating, who maybe aren't living together. If you're living together, it becomes a little bit different, but you still aren't married and you're living together, early on. You don't really know where it's going to go, right?
Right.
So your obligations to each other kind of build. They, the momentum kind of picks up as the years go on. And I think it's important for people to speak up for themselves early on, or they'll get stuck doing things that they're going to regret. And they're going to be
Yes.
like, why did I always go to Bob's families on Christmas Day? Why did I give up my Christmas days with my families for so many years? I could just kick myself.
Yep. And see, that's an important point because what will happen earlier in a relationship is you might do something for the relationship, sacrifice to the relationship,
Right.
go to this other family outing to
Mhm.
be cooperative and go on. But what it does is it sets up a problem in the future because, well, you went last year. Why wouldn't you go now? It's about, again, being seen and accepted, understood and accepted. Your partner, hopefully, and it might be too young in a relationship for them to expect them to be this good at it, but your partner has to understand why you might be uncomfortable in this situation
Right.
and why it not be working out for you. And if you stand up for yourself and say, no, why don't you go see your family? I'm going to go see my family, and then we'll get together at a point later. You
Mhm.
have to be accepted enough and they have to be safe enough to be able to tell your partner that. And then they understand, okay, it's a little bit too much for them doing it this year. Fine. We'll do it this way this year. Being seen and being understood and being accepted, that's important. But if you just give in and you show enthusiasm and you go to see his parents, you travel with him and go to see his parents, in his mind, what he's thinking is, well, she's all right with it. She's enjoying it. So this is what we're going to do.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to establish these boundaries and these expectations of you having a say just for your own personal comfort.
Yep.
Sometimes, I mean, you're going to laugh.
But let me give you a male thing on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a male perspective on this. It's important to be clear about these things instead of just giving in, because, again, men are simple. And they are just going to go, well, she wanted to go see my family. She liked going to see my family. They don't necessarily see it as you're giving into the situation at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You're being nice. You're accommodating the relationship. Yeah, in their mind, well, she liked it, so let's do it again. And you just keep doing it until finally it kind of blows up. In relationships, I always used to like to talk to my partner, and I used to like to say, don't let problems become big problems. If you got a thing, talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Before it's 3, 4, 5 years down the line and we get, God, we always go to your parents. Why do we always go to your parents? And there's a big fight. Well, tell me 2 years ago or 3 years ago there's a problem, and don't let it grow big. Talk to me and I'll take care of it. Right. Then if you give in and you go to his parents, the man's going to think, well, she likes it. She enjoys it. So let's do that.
Well, and that's the thing too. You start this dance, right? And you create this way of doing things. And when you try to speak up, it probably won't come out very well in a few years. And the guy or the woman that you're saying this to is going to be like, what the heck? Like that's news to me. And then you're like, well, I never liked hanging out with your Aunt Betty, right?
Yeah.
Or, your Uncle Bob's a crazy lunatic. Like, who would want that at Christmas time? And, your boyfriend or your girlfriend's going to be like, well, why didn't you tell me?
Right.
Because very often your boyfriend or your girlfriend probably thinks Crazy Bob is a crazy person.
Yes.
But they just figured, well, you're willing to come to my family and my family wants me there. But they probably would have loved it if you said, look, can we just not go this year? Because then they could have been like, hey, Mom, sorry, but, Jane has obligations at her family this year, so we're going to have to do that. Like, you don't know what the other person's thinking.
Right.
Not all the time, but some of the time.
Yep.
The other thing is, like, for me, I don't like huge crowds when it comes to holidays. I don't mind it at a bar.
Yeah.
The older I get, the more I prefer like something smaller where I can actually hear the people I'm with. It's a crazy concept of hearing your conversation, but
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I think a lot of times people feel obligated to go. And I mean, I've been in that situation. I was very comfortable going to my first husband's family because it was really just his mom and dad and his sister and her husband. And they had 1 or 2 kids before we started having kids. So it was like, it was just great. We're just hanging out with them and like their couple of kids opening gifts and stuff.
Right.
But then I dated other people who had these crazy big, kind of like my big Greek wedding or whatever. It was kind of like these great big Greek, not Greek, but I never dated a Greek person. Can't think of it. But big Italian, like there's like a whole thing going on there. And then like the grandmother always wants you to have their ravioli. And it's really overwhelming. Like we're not Italian, we're Irish. So we're used to food that isn't that exciting.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I can't do like stuffed shells and the manicotti and the lasagna. And then, the true Italians also have fish.
Yep.
Right?
7 fishes. Yep.
And they have fish.
Mm-hmm.
And they have like 7 courses. Like,
Oh, it's a tradition, the 7 fishes. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's the whole thing.
Yep.
And then you quickly learn during the first event with your boyfriend or your girlfriend that you should have paced yourself.
Yep.
Because after like 2 or 3 courses, God forbid you even add some salad in there because they'll have the antipasta and stuff like that. I used to fill up on like salami because like I don't eat that kind of thing. They'd have like cheese, crackers, bowls of olives. I'm like,
but pacing yourself isn't encouraged either. So in fact, it's just the opposite.
Yeah, it's not even encouraged, but I'll tell you, one Italian gathering and you learn quickly to pace yourself because there's nothing like an Italian pastry. I'm just saying.
I know. I understand.
I
Early in a relationship, you are giving an impression to your partner that is different from who you are, and it's understandable why. But
Mhm,
and I will speak for guys because I know guys. They're not going to. I'm not going to know that you don't want to be that social, that big
mhm,
gatherings are
right,
anxiety for you. If you go and
mhm,
do them, I'm not going to understand that's a problem for you. And
right,
hopefully you understand if you tell me, I go, all right, I get it. Maybe you want to go to your parents, I'll go there, or we'll go and we'll go for an hour. We'll
mhm,
just go after dinner or something. So don't have to deal with it too much. And we'll say we're on our way to something else. And you try to accommodate each other, or hopefully in the relationship, especially when you have your own kids, you develop your own traditions. And it's not so much about going to the families, it's about your family, you know,
mhm,
those types of things. But I'm not going to understand that if you don't tell me. So with guys, you have to talk to them, I think, because they just go on how you act. They don't go if you go to that again, if you go to that function willingly and you say, yeah, let's go to your parents, they're going to think you like it
mhm,
because that's the way we are.
yep.
We don't
Well,
understand what a overwhelming thing it is for you because you went and did it.
right. So it's funny because when you were talking and you were talking about how men typically they want to know what you're thinking because they're not mind readers,
Right, exactly.
but women like to think, for God's sakes, we've been going out, we've been dating for 9 or 10 months. He should know what I want for Christmas. That's always my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
And how do you feel about that, Lou?
Oh God, no. No. It's like it's impossible. First of all, it's impossible. And
Yeah.
it's different for different women, of course, and I've been in different relationships with different ranges here, but
Yep.
right now, it's like her tastes are so particular, and I have no fashion sense or anything like that,
Mhm,
so I don't know what's appropriate and what's supposed to get. It's daunting. It's daunting as hell.
mhm, mhm.
I
Well,
have no idea what I'm doing.
right.
Yeah,
And I think not to take the fun out of it, but I also think it's important for people to assert themselves and be like, you can say it in kind of a fun way, but say we've been dating for 6 or 7 months and now Christmas is coming. And I don't really maybe I haven't heard enough about family Christmases. And I don't really know if you're like if you guys are gift givers or not.
right.
It might be important for me to say, hey, so just so you know, like my family, they're like, you know, they've really cut back and they're more minimalist. They'll give people one or two gifts that they know they're really going to like. When we're no longer the 20 gifts per person
Right.
kind of thing. We've cut back just,
Yep.
for a lot of different reasons, not really financially, but just making it more meaningful, right?
Sure.
Um, and so that's a way to approach it and just say, so when you come over to like our house for Christmas Day, um, my brother and my sister are not expecting a gift.
Right.
I just wanted to let you know that because I don't even know if they'll be thinking about it. But the coolest thing that you could do, if I don't know what you're thinking, but if you could bring like a dessert, my mom would be like forever grateful and would find that to be like really nice.
Right.
Um, good old fashioned bottle of wine or flowers. Like that's the kind of thing that my mom and dad would really love, something like that. Because your boyfriend's not a mind reader,
Right.
right? And you don't want your boyfriend who you've only been dating for 6 months to show up with like something totally inappropriate, like, ooh, yeah, Uncle Bob's an alcoholic. So like we actually
Yeah.
have wine at the table,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Don't let your boyfriend or girlfriend be in the dark. The other thing is the awkward thing, Lou, is if I'm dating you for 3 years, you and I are in the swing of things, right? We're doing birthday gifts, probably.
Yep.
We're probably doing Christmas gifts too, or Hanukkah, whatever. But when you're like 6 months dating, somebody's got to be the brave one to say something about gifts.
Hmm.
And like maybe you and I, maybe we don't see each other 3 times a week. So now I'm thinking, well, I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that Lou sees, but it's like
Yeah.
it's not like super hot and heavy and we're not living together. So like, how's this going to work? And also I don't want to go out to dinner and then you present like a box with a necklace and I'm sitting there like,
Yeah.
you can have the book I'm reading, like
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I
Yep.
think when you're in that weird gray area where you're not like in the swing of dating somebody, it's very important to figure out a way to bring it up.
Yep.
When they say that it's sort of a corny expression, but it really is true. Be the change.
Yep.
Like if your relation sucks, be the change. Like don't yell at them all the time. You do things that are different, right?
Yep.
So it's the same thing. If you're thinking ahead about this, and I know we don't have a lot of time before Christmas, what are we, 10 days away? Be the one that says, hey, you know what, Lou? So I don't know what we were thinking about for Christmas, but I know you and I were talking about getting together Christmas night after we go to our family's houses. Um, were you thinking that we would exchange gifts? Because I would love to buy you something, but and I don't have to tell you what it is, right? I
Yep.
want to get you something, but I don't want you to feel like creeped out by it. And um, like if I really don't have a feel for it, I think I need to say something like that.
Yeah.
And then you might be like, yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I got you something. And I'll be like, okay, but it's not over the top, right? Because like I just can't afford a lot this year. And you'll be like, no, 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 no. Because you don't want, like, I don't want to show up Christmas night and you bought me 5 cashmere sweaters.
Yep.
And a pair of earrings, and I'm gonna bring you your favorite whiskey. Like,
yep.
It's meaningful to you, but if you're a different type of person, you might be like, what the heck? Right?
Yep.
I don't want to get that what the heck. So you need to figure out a way to find out, is Lou buying me a gift or not? Because it can be really awkward.
Yeah, sure. And here's the thing about that is that a guy will walk into that exact situation and then not understand why you're upset with him. And you'd be upset for days because, like, look, you bought me all this stuff and set me up. I didn't give you an appropriate gift. I feel bad. And the guy's not trying to do that. And he's just sitting there going, I just bought you something. I don't know why you're so upset. He will relish. See, that's what guys want to avoid. They don't want that. It's the old classic. What's wrong? Oh, nothing. That's when you know you're in trouble, right? That type of thing.
Yeah.
Have the conversation before. The guy will appreciate it. He will love it. It's such a relief to him to understand. We talk about kids love expectations, and I believe kids do love expectations because I can do this and live up to it. It's easy. It's clear. I know what to do. That's what guys like. So if you get into a situation where you even say, let's not do gifts this year, or, there's a $50 limit or whatever, however you decide to make it comfortable for everybody, they would love that clarity. Guys love that clarity because otherwise they're just fumbling around. And what they don't want to do is get into the situation where you're upset about something that they don't understand what they did.
Right.
They love clarity. We love clarity. Talk to us. They don't like conflict. So if you do it well beforehand, diffusing the problem in just the conversational way that doesn't cause a problem, love it. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Right.
Takes all the pressure off.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is if you're just not sure about things, but you're pretty sure you're going to be exchanging gifts, but you're kind of at a loss, or you think the other person might be, there's nothing wrong with like leaving some hints, right? Like I wouldn't say to you, hey, since I think we're probably going to exchange gifts, and you'll be like, yeah, I'm probably going to get you something, okay. I just want to make sure because I saw something I wanted to get you, but I don't want you to feel weird about it. So I didn't know, like, are we exchanging gifts or not?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about way more intimate topics with the people that we're dating, but yet we can't bring up like, are we exchanging gifts or not? Right? Or is there a dollar limit? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Just be like, look, can we just each get each other like one nice thing, whatever.
Yeah.
And if you feel like the person you're dating doesn't know you that well, make some hints. Like, this is one of my hints. I'm like just yesterday, I'm like, oh my God, my favorite liquid eyeshadow. I can't get any more out of this. I can see it in there, but it won't come out because it's a stupid tube. So my husband's like, oh, he jumped right on it. Of course, we've been married for 8 years. He's like, do you need another one?
Yeah.
I'm like, actually, yes. That is like talking to my love language is because it's an active service to get me new eyeshadow. That's not even like a gift. That's an active service right there. And he's going to call my friend who sells these and go meet her next week and get a couple of these. I'm like,
okay, so he knows how to acquire it. It was funny. My girlfriend had a birthday right before Thanksgiving, and I went to shop around for some stuff, and I ended up at a mall, which I never end up at a mall.
You're not a mall guy.
I'm not a mall guy at all. And in fact, after the exchange, after I gave her the gifts and whatever, I sent her a photo because I took a picture of myself in the mall because I knew she wouldn't believe it. No, I actually went to the mall for you. And it's like she almost loved the picture better than the gift, that I was just sitting there walking around in a mall.
That is a riot.
Yeah, let alone going into a Sephora or some kind of makeup shop to get some eyeliner or something. I mean, God.
Right.
God bless him. But Although I did go into an Ultra last year. At
Oh yeah,
Christmas.
Ulta, whatever it is. Yep.
Yeah, so I did do that, but I kept notes early in the relationship. I actually have an email in my draft section with notes on her gifts, like what kind of fragrances she likes and things like that. So,
right. Yeah. Those are important because if someone does, like wear perfume, which, I do, I've kind of expanded over the years. So Jim is funny. I was talking about this in a meeting earlier today. He is the person that actually gets roped into smelling things or letting them, like in the mall. He can't get past these people that want to put the body lotion on his arm.
oh, really?
Yeah. So one year I got, moisturizer from the Dead Sea.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I'm like, buddy, you could have just bought like Nivea for $5.99 at CVS, but okay.
Yeah.
There's no difference in this is not from like Israel. Trust me. This is just made in a factory like all the other moisturizers. There's no difference. Okay. But he actually smells perfumes and then buys me perfume based on that.
Oh, so he'll buy perfume for you.
Oh, he buys me perfume. In fact, he just asked me last week, do you need any perfume? Which is his way of saying, please let me buy perfume. So I'm like, well, I don't really need any, but I can always use another bottle. So,
I would not do that. I would never do that because God, there's no chance I'm picking the right perfume. There's just no chance. And it's funny, we're in this situation now, and I'm in a little bit of a loss here because there has been conversation in the house about no gifts this year. It hasn't been a stated thing, but there has been a conversation in the house about no gifts. And then I asked the other day, I just went out and asked, again, trying to be clear, what do you want for Christmas?
Are we really not exchanging gifts this year?
No, I didn't ask that. I go, what do you want for Christmas? Because I thought that would be the answer. Well, we decided not to exchange gifts, in which case, obviously we'd get a little something, and that would be the thing. But and then I got no answer, and I'm going, because for a guy, that's a really treacherous ground, because you're wondering if you're running into that wall of you should know what I want for Christmas. You should put some. If you're asking me what I want for Christmas, you're not putting any effort into it, and it's like that's a real tough trap for a guy to be in. Because you don't want to elicit those feelings, but by the same token, you want to get something good. So it's like basically we've worked into the routine where I buy stuff and keep the receipts. Basically, it's a gift certificate. You can go get what you want. That type of thing.
Right.
So show a little effort, and then if you don't like that, you can go get something that you really like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is one of those things, and I think the reality is when I say, like, when I talk about my support group, Surviving the Holidays, we're talking about people that have recently been dumped, or they left a relationship, or it's their second or third Christmas alone after a major breakup. We're also talking about, hate to say it, but my least favorite, other than Valentine's Day, my least favorite holiday, which is New Year's Eve. I think it's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I think that people often feel like obligated to go out, to go to a party, to go to go to Times Square.
Right.
The last place I'd want to be on New Year's Eve, but
I've got an aunt that goes every year, and it's like, I have no, why in God's name would you do that? It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes if people are single, whether they just started dating someone and they're not sure if that's going to be a thing or not, that can lead to a little bit of stress too. Because it is one of those holidays. It's like a thing.
It's a kind of a couple's holiday. Yeah. Like Valentine's Day, it's kind of a couple's holiday.
Right. Yeah. So we usually make like a nice meal in, because we don't have to fight the crowds and fight for a parking spot in Boston to go eat out for the night.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. It's often freezing that night, by the way.
Yep.
I mean, how many times probably you didn't, but a couple of times I went to first night in Boston.
Oh yeah, I've been to first
and
night.
I'm like, oh my God, I should have remembered. It's like December 31st. It's freezing out. That's why they have all these ice sculptures. I'm like, I was miserable. I hated that thing.
But from the guy's side of the relationship, this is the same thing too. It's like, just be clear. Just, most guys want to give you a good experience, give you a great gift, make you feel good, but they're kind of at a loss at how to do it.
Right.
A lot of the times. And it doesn't mean, by the way, if they don't understand, if they can't hone in on the right gift or the right thing to do on New Year's Eve, for example, and for me and my family, and even beyond that, for years it was
Mhm.
you know, it's Chinese food on New Year's Eve. That's the thing. But even that's become a
I
half.
like Chinese food. I got to be honest.
Yeah, you don't like it?
I like it.
Oh yeah, yeah. But that was a New Year's Eve tradition too. But it's everybody's New Year's Eve tradition, so it's tough to get. But be clear with us because we want to do the right thing, and it doesn't mean because we don't necessarily understand, you know, whether you want perfume or whether you want, yeah, I don't know, do you want us to buy you clothes? What do you want? You know, experience. What do you want? It doesn't mean we don't care, and it doesn't mean we're not paying attention. It you know, so
Mhm.
so that's a tough position for. This is always a tough position for a guy to be in.
Mhm. So the other thing with with the holidays, if you're celebrating Christmas and whatnot, is what if you broke up with someone,
Hmm.
but you're sort of kind of, it's not like a hard breakup, right? So you're kind of maybe seeing each other, you're kind of playing it by ear. If you're in a gray area post full time, I say bite the bullet, get a gift, and don't expect one back.
Right.
I think if you're looking to work on that relationship, extend the olive branch. Be the one. Don't be like, well, I'm not going to get him a gift because I don't know if he's even getting me a gift. It's like, no. When my high school boyfriend screwed up shortly before Christmas, and we, well, I think he was in college at the time, maybe. I was a senior in high school. And so we had broken up. And, I wasn't happy about that, but I wasn't concerned about not getting Christmas gifts. And I remember one time he drove up the street with his best friend, who was also became my best friend. I still keep in touch with him. And he said, hey, and I'm like, because he must have known I was walking down to like my friend's house. I don't even know, but it just happened to be I was outside walking. It was like the week before Christmas or right around Christmas. And so he said, he's like small talk. And I'm like, get out of here. Like, you're making this so uncomfortable. I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck on the street. At least if I was home,
Yeah.
I could have said to my mom, tell him I'm busy.
Yep.
So then he, because he's talking to me with the window rolled down. I'm talking to his friend, which is, like I said, my friend. And he takes a box, and it's a really beautifully wrapped box. And it's a long, thin box. And it's, I wasn't sure what it was, but it was a beautiful pair of leather gloves.
Yep.
And he's like, take the here. I bought you a gift. I'm thinking to myself, right now, I have pretty mixed feelings about you, buddy.
Yep.
Not really thinking we're definitely getting back together. I'm bummed out about things, but like,
Yep.
I'm in a really conflicted period right here. A period of this relationship that I wish we weren't in.
Yep.
But he insisted that I take it. And so finally I took it, and I think I opened it at home later on. I don't think I opened it in front of him. I can't remember, but I remember thinking to myself,
right.
Like, given the state of affairs and how we broke up and the weirdness that the relationship was in, it just wasn't appropriate to give me a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't feeling guilty about not getting him one. I didn't even want one from him. And it's so funny because I didn't even wear the gloves, but I never threw them out. And the next year, I don't know if we were together. We might have been back together, but I was really glad. I mean, I had them until like 2 years ago. I'm not kidding.
Yep.
I'm no spring chicken, but they were really well-made leather gloves. And they were like my favorite gloves. I don't even know where the heck he got these things, but they were the nicest leather gloves, and they had like fur inside. Sounds kind of weird.
Yep.
But these things, you couldn't kill these gloves. I mean, I wore them to the point where they were almost like the really nice, like, when you're wearing like your leather boots or leather shoes.
Right.
They were super soft, and like they moved with your hands, and they stretched a little bit because they can be kind of tight, Would you be my favorite thing for years?
Would you have been more receptive to the gloves that year if they were just showed up at your door, for example, without that meeting, without that awkward meeting and the uncomfortableness of that meeting?
Well, I wasn't up for a gift at all that Christmas from him.
Yeah. So it didn't matter that it happened during the meeting.
Okay. Right. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You know what I say, Lou? Like, some people are serial daters. That's all I'm going to say. This guy I'm not saying he couldn't help himself, but I would say he lives in a way that says to you, this guy just can't help himself. He just, sees a pretty woman and he just wants to go after that. I'm like, well, that's really cool if you weren't dating me.
Like, always shopping, right? Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, and it's interesting too, because when you're that young, well, it depends on your upbringing, but I was always brought up to be kind of understanding and try to give somebody a second chance. Looking back several years later, I was kind of ticked at myself that I'd given them like 5 or 6 chances
Yeah.
with our breakups. But the reality is, if somebody did something like that to you, I don't think you should be getting them a Christmas gift. I actually would hope, that you'd have a friend that would step in and say,
Yeah.
maybe you should use this time of being single to really think about, was that even the best fit? Because sometimes we want to be in a relationship because we want to be in a relationship.
Right.
I
Exactly.
mean, I don't know about you, but I've been in relationships that weren't exactly wonderful, but to me, it's kind of pathetic when I look back at it. But
Yeah.
there was a part of me, I have to admit, as an older, mature person now, that liked it for the fact of the matter that it was the devil I knew.
Right.
That makes sense. Like,
Absolutely.
and even my friends were like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, because we love each other, but love doesn't cheat on each other, right?"
Right.
Like,
Yep.
I'm like, or love doesn't give somebody the silent treatment for a week.
Yeah,
My
everybody's
personal
watching right
favorite.
now. Everybody's watching right now. Raise your hands if you've been in a devil relationship, because I'm guessing almost everyone has.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think the
And by the
sooner
way, that feeling grows as you go along in
Mhm.
that relationship, because you see how messy and painful relationships are,
Yeah,
and the thought of starting over with somebody else, because that's all you think when you're in it. That's all you think relationships are, just this type of hassle.
right.
Yep.
Well, and that's why I say people need to hire me for their date coaching,
Yep.
because I know the things that people don't understand. And I know that at the end of the day, it hardly ever works to try to change somebody, right?
Yep.
Um, you know, you may be the person that changes them a little bit, but then they'll go off and be a better date for somebody else. So I always say, why waste your time
Yep.
creating a better person who statistically, I like that word. I'm going to say statistically is not going to be your forever guy or woman. And now you just made them better for somebody else, which is great that you get a better person out in the world. But it's not your job to perfect somebody, to correct them, to make them better. I mean, better, yes, with if it's a healthy relationship, you want to support them so they can be better, but you're not trying to make them better.
Right.
The difference between what I'm trying to say. What am I trying to say?
The old saying goes that men marry women hoping they'll never change, and women marry men hoping they'll change, and that's the basic conflict here.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, what you really need to worry about, especially if you're young and dating, or you're pre-marriage, or even after the marriage, and you're going around dating, you have to worry about the type of people that you are attracted to, and dating the same person all the time. That's where the improvement comes in.
Mm-hmm.
If you, I'm guessing most people will look back and say, well, geez, they were all the same. They all like to date around, or
Mm-hmm.
this guy didn't care about me. All he cared about was his friends and going out. And that guy, same thing. You're going to find out that you date in patterns too. And that's what you have to be aware of. And that's what you have to be conscious about.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of people, Lou, tend to say, well, that's what I like, or that's my kind of person. And you feel like saying, yeah, the person that goes to the racetrack, that's fun. Like, assuming they're not spending lots of money and losing it, but that's a fun thing, but not when it's like 5 nights a week, Lou.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like somebody that loves going to the racetrack and that's like their main livelihood. Unless that's your thing, it's eventually going to be a bit of a sticky point.
Plus, there are inherent character traits. For example, I like this guy. Everybody loves him. Well, everybody loves him because he works at it. It's important to him, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's just because he's a good guy. It's because he puts out a gregarious front. He likes being that guy. He likes to be the guy everybody likes, and that's going to run you into problems. Could run you into some problems sometimes. So you have to be aware of that character trait.
Mm-hmm.
It's a quality, but it also means some other things, and you have to be aware of that too.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think pressuring ourselves around the holidays is one of the worst things that we do. And I think, we've all been there, Lou. It's like, where we feel like, well, I'm kind of hoping that we get back together, or I'm hoping that I can like really secure this, and we go out of our way to do more during a holiday than we normally would. So like if I was only dating you for 4 or 5 months and your birthday came along, and I'm in that like, what do I do? What do I do? And I think putting the cart before the horse means doing too much. So it's kind of like when we talk about what kids do with movies, right? It has to be age appropriate. And as you get older, you can do more age appropriate things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with dating. When you're dating, act in an age appropriate way, act in a way that is time appropriate. So in other words, I remember I dated this guy. I don't know, how old was I? I was like 24, 25.
Yep.
I had started dating this guy, and we really liked each other, but my God, I'm 24, 25 years old. Like that's kind of young for like serious romance, in the sense of like,
right.
This guy sent me red roses once a week to my job. And the first time I got them, I was like, my God, the only time I ever got red roses was like, when my uncle died, my college boyfriend, who stayed in touch with me and the family, sent this beautiful arrangement of red roses and stuff like that. But like at 24 or 25, it wasn't super age appropriate, and it was like weekly. And I'm like even it's just like it was like over the top.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, how do I have a discussion with somebody to say, dude, you need to temper this down. Like this needs to be relationship appropriate.
Right.
Like we've only been going out for like a couple of months. Who knows where this is going? And you're like I was dreading Christmas because I'm like, this is going to be really bad if he buys me like a bracelet or something.
Yeah.
Because I'm not leaning toward anything more than a shirt, and I don't even think I want to date this guy much longer. It creeped me out.
Yeah.
So for men and women, it's important not to overdo it. In my opinion, depending if it's a young relationship, the worst you can do, which is the best you can do, is less is more.
Yeah.
Less is more. This is not the time to be buying your sort of kind of wannabe boyfriend an $800 watch.
Right. Yeah.
Because, that's not even necessarily going to secure the relationship. And if it does, you have a bigger problem on your hands.
Well, see, yeah, that's the behavior. The roses every week was a sign of insecurity and an effort to over accelerate the relationship, which are red flags. They're all red flags because it's not. And you talk age appropriate, and we normally associate age appropriate with the person's age, but that's relationship age. A couple months into a relationship, you're not buying roses every week. I mean, it's
right.
It's not age appropriate for the relationship, and it's a sign of other issues. It's a sign of his insecurity, and he likes you, and he's desperate not to lose you, and he thinks he can push the issue, with the roses, and so those are red flags.
Right. Pardon the pun. Red flags.
And by the way, obviously, some people have different sensibilities and see things different ways, and you can allow for that. But still, that's just way too much, It
was way over the top.
Yeah.
And so I always advise people, less is more. It has to be appropriate to where the relationship is. If you've been dating someone for 5 years, it could be a lot different than someone you've been dating for 6 months.
Right. Because that's essentially having a conversation about something that should come later in a relationship. It's force feeding the relationship. It's pushing it, past its natural age. It's not age appropriate. You're exactly right.
Right. And I think the important thing that I always remind people of is slow and steady wins the race. Taking your time, moving, at a more normal pace, as opposed to like, flipping out and going crazy over the honeymoon phase for 2 months.
Let me just here's another thing about that and why it's a red flag. It's that it's disregarding your pacing.
Right. It really did.
You're not being seen and heard and understood. It's just, it's bulldozing, basically. And that's, if a person is going to do that to you, it's going to be part of your relationship. It's going to be something they're going to do they're going to do on a consistent basis. Early in a relationship, or any point in a relationship, you ought to be able to take into account the other person's pacing and sensibilities and adapt to them.
Right.
And that was just bulldozing. It was no regard for your pace and where you might be and what you might need at that particular moment.
Right. It's kind of like, and it was just creepy. And I was embarrassed because it came to work it was like every week or two. I'm like, this is just, I even gave them away at one point. I think it was every week.
Yep.
I'd be giving them to the administrative assistant in the department.
Yep.
Like, just take these, bring them home, put them on your desk. I don't care, but ridiculous. It's just weird. But I think, those are the tips that we have for people surviving the holidays. Is key to go at your own pace. Don't lose yourself.
Right.
If you don't want to go to a party, don't say you're going to the party. And if you're not usually asserting yourself, make this the year 2021 that you start asserting yourself. Right.
Yeah. And it's okay. It's okay to assert yourself, take care of yourself, work on your sensibilities and your pace. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And by the way, you have the added advantage of establishing those boundaries and ground rules for later in a relationship. And seeing how the person reacts to you establishing those boundaries is very important too, because it gives you an idea of whether they're going to respect your boundaries going forward.
Exactly. So I think, like we talk about, be the change. The sooner you become a more mature person and look at things in perspective, the better. And it also protects your heart to not have high expectations as well. If you're sort of kind of dating somebody or you're not dating somebody, whatever it is, if you aren't putting out too much and you're just pacing yourself, you won't feel later like you were taken advantage of, or you bought 25 gifts because you just felt like you should.
Yep.
I always try to get people to the point where they're acting more within a reasonable way. The sooner the better, so they don't have any regrets later.
Yep.
And they don't feel bad about themselves. Like, I never should have done that. I shouldn't have gone to the party. I shouldn't have gotten back together with them. I should have been able to say, I'll think about it. That's what we always say.
Well, we've all met people, and sometimes the toughest thing is for people to unlearn things. You get somebody in your job and they're doing something the wrong way, and you have to unlearn what they've done and reteach them. That's a lot more difficult than teaching them from the beginning. And that's the way it should be in a relationship too. It's much easier to develop the relationship patterns you want while you're building the relationship than it is to get to a problem point and then just rebuild everything.
Right. Yep. Exactly. But I think we're out of time. We kind of got started a little bit late, but no, I think that's about as much time as we have for today. But next week, we'll talk about holidays again and how to survive them and get through them, because, people have different feelings with their families, never mind like a spouse or a date, right? Let's just talk about families.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Always fun.
That's enough right there, right?
That's enough right there. So we just want everybody to know that this is a program you can share. All of the videos, all of the shows rather, are archived here on this page on Coach Judith. And we highly recommend and suggest and welcome sharing these shows, because there are people out there that need to hear about me, what I do, how I can help them process into healthy dating habits, or, fix that relationship or marriage that they have, or how to go through a breakup, and get back on your feet. So anyway, get ready for the holidays, everybody. It's not as bad as you might be anticipating. We will get you through it.
That's
Make
right.
it as stress-free as possible, and be well, be healthy. And we'll see you back here next week to talk about it some more.